This is the Reading to Learn math page for section 9.4. We're looking at proportional parts in triangles. Reading the lesson number 1, it says, use the given diagram to explain why theorem 9.4 is true. So it's important to know what theorem 9.4 says. Theorem 9.4 says if you have this picture where a triangle's inside of a triangle and you have parallel segments, those two triangles end up being congruent all the time. Why does that work? Well, remember how we discussed in class. When you have parallel segments, your corresponding angles are congruent. So they're congruent in that spot where the blue arcs are, and they're also congruent in that spot where the green arcs are. And don't forget too, angle S is actually in both triangles. So you have 3 pairs of congruent angles. That means the triangles are similar by angle. Number 2, use the diagram to explain why the proportion is not a correct application of theorem 9.5. So in this proportion, we're comparing segment CG, that's an entire side, that's the left side of the small triangle. We're going to divide that by segment GF. That is not an entire side of any triangle. Is that the same thing as segment GD, which is an entire side of the small triangle, compared with segment FE? That's an entire side of the big triangle. This is not going to be true because you are comparing an entire side to a part of a side. So I'll just make that note here. Segment GF is not an entire side. And that's okay, as long as on the other side you're comparing it to a side that's not an entire side as well. Okay. Segment GD and segment FE are entire sides. Also notice how those segments aren't split by a segment. Okay, so that doesn't work. If you were to correct this and make it work, you can keep everything you want except segment GF. And you can make one little change. And instead of comparing it to a small piece that's not a segment, compare it with the entire side, segment CF. That would be like this guy here. Okay. Number 3, find the value of A. Explain your method for finding the value. There's your diagram. You have a triangle. Inside of a triangle, you have parallel segments. Notice how that smaller parallel segment is splitting the 2 sides of the big triangle. So you can use that side splitter theorem, that's theorem 9.5, to write an easy proportion like this. Notice how I'm just taking the expressions off exactly the way they look on the picture. Okay, so real simple way to do this is make a fraction out of those 2, make a fraction out of these 2, and say they're equal in the middle. Okay, now we're going to cross multiply here. So we're going to take 8 times a quantity, and we're going to set it equal to 10 times another quantity. We're going to distribute. And then we're going to subtract 8A from both sides. And we'll subtract 30 from both sides. What the heck? So A is just 5. And notice how they wanted you to find A. So we're good.